I'm Courtney Fallon, and welcome to The Game Plan on Reach TV, your insider guide to this week's key NFL action. In The Game Plan, I tap into the Bleav podcast network to bring you the most important information you need to know for this week's big games. Well, the big game is just around the corner, but first, it's Pro Bowl weekend. So to go over all of the big stories as we inch closer to the big game, I am joined by the great Eric Metcalf from the Dog Check podcast. Eric's rocking the full Nike outfit, checks over stripes. We went over that just before we got on here. So sponsor the man.
Sure.
Eric, you ready to play 3 and Out with us?
I am. Thanks for having me.
Okay, let's do it. First down, as we head into free agency, who are your top offensive and defensive players that are available?
For my selfish reasons, being a former Cleveland Brown,
Yes.
offensively, I like T. Higgins. He's a receiver. He could help the Browns. And so when I look at T. Higgins, I think about he's 25 years old. He's 6'4", very rangy. He's able to play at all levels, meaning he can catch the ball underneath, through the middle and stretch the field as well. He plays the slot, he plays the outside, and if he wasn't in Cincinnati, he'd probably be Batman and not Robin.
Yeah.
And because of Jamar Chase. And so I like him to be a guy, to be the number one guy when I'm talking about free agents, receivers.
Well, can he garner that number one wide receiver money? I'm sure that the Browns would open their checkbook to T. Higgins. This year kind of was like an off year for him. He really had his breakout season the year before, but I agree with you. T. Higgins, incredibly talented, and I love that pick for you. Second down, who is your top snub for the Pro Bowl in lieu of the Pro Bowl games going on in Orlando this weekend?
My guy was someone who just got put in there as a replacement, and that was Amon-Ra St. Brown. Now, I have to go to a Cleveland Brown, and that's Dustin Hopkins. He was 91% in field goals this year, and he was 8 for 8 for over 50. He won some games, and I mean Justin Tucker, I love him to death. He's a Longhorn, but I think it was a popularity thing, and no one really paid attention to Dustin Hopkins.
Well, typically that happens. Third down on this conversation, and I'm just going to play off of you're picking everyone from the Browns, and this is a joke, Cleveland. Which team has the better head coaching gig, Washington or Seattle? Now, we just found out that Mike Macdonald just got hired for the Seattle job, but I mean, hypothetically speaking, are we just going to send free agent coach Bill Belichick to go coach the Browns again? I had to throw it in there. Because we're down to one. We're down to one head coaching position.
But prior to Mike Macdonald going to Seattle, I would have said that the Seahawks was the better fit, was a better place to go coach, because they have a good defense. They have pieces on the offense that you can actually win games. When you're looking at the Washington Commanders, they traded most of their defense away. They're still searching for a quarterback to run that offense. And so you don't know what you're going to get. So I would have picked Seattle to be the better team to coach.
Okay. A bonus question for you. Where does Baker Mayfield end up in 2024? You know plenty about Baker Mayfield, but does he stay with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers after that breakout season?
I think Tampa keeps him.
Yeah.
I mean, he played well for them and did some things that only Tom Brady had done prior to this season. So I think they keep him. He's also been put in the Pro Bowl as well as a replacement. So he's done a lot of good things for that team.
I agree with you. I think I'm so high on Baker Mayfield. I just think he's got the quarterback moxie. He's got the it factor, and he performs well on the field. That's why he was a former first overall pick. Eric Metcalf, Browns, checks over stripes. Browns all day, every day. Just, don't ask him about any other team in the NFL. He is the guy to go to. Thank you so much, and we will speak to you soon. Next up, we are wrapping up the season for the Falcons, Patriots, Chargers, and Lions. Stay right there. Our first wrap-up is on the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons finished 7-9, and we're in the mix at the end of the season for a playoff spot, but a late season slump ended all hope of said playoff spot. The slump cost Arthur Smith his job and led to the Falcons hiring Raheem Morris. To wrap up the season for the Atlanta Falcons, let's hear from Will McFadden and Ovi Mihaly from the Bleav in Falcons podcast. Guys, let me hear your thoughts on this postseason upcoming for Atlanta.
The Falcons always falcon or way off than they should. And to me, that means we just never get our first choice. You know, from the Arthur Smith to the Mike Smith, all the coaches we don't get the first choice. So I was livid, irate, upset, frustrated until I heard a couple of little tweets, little twittering, information that the reason that Bill wouldn't work here because he wanted total control. Everything runs through him, and that was, I guess, what worked in New England when he had Tom Brady. But right now, I feel like he has a lot of coaching chops that we could definitely use here, but he shouldn't be in charge of personnel. I mean, look at the Mac Jones debacle and some other people he's chosen. I think Terry's gotten it more right than he's gotten it wrong in his couple years here, and I want to keep Terry here. So if in order for Bill to come, Terry has to go, I'm like, heck no. And I started looking to Raheem. I'm like, okay, I did want a head coach with experience. He's had experience. He did great in Tampa, and with the Falcons, he did all right with the talent he had. Then you look at what he's done in LA with the Rams, and you're like, okay, if you really look into that, these guys have gotten better with Raheem. There's not one person that doesn't say that Raheem should have had a head coaching job before now. Even though I feel like, we're getting the short end of the stick, I'm like, this guy actually could underhandedly be one of the best things ever happened to Atlanta. So I'm excited about it.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much. All right, well, I hope Raheem Morris becomes your Dan Campbell. But of course, you have to remember that Arthur Blank, the owner of the Falcons, interviewed Bill Belichick twice and a number of other candidates for this head coaching position. Clearly, Raheem Morris is the guy for the job. He's got a very young squad there in Atlanta and plenty of room to compete in the NFC South. Well, the sweeping winds of change have finally hit Route 1 in Foxborough. After a 4-13 season, the Patriots and iconic head coach Bill Belichick have decided to part ways after over 2 decades. To discuss the Patriots offseason and what comes next, let's hear from my buddies up there, Christopher Price and Chris Hogan, former Patriot, from the Patriots Report podcast. Guys, you guys are pretty clued in up there in Foxborough. What do you got for me?
Thank you very much, Courtney. Chris, want to get your take on how Jerod Mayo has done so far as the new head coach of the New England Patriots.
I mean, it seems like he's doing a good job. I expected a lot of the former coaches, former people that have coached there in the past to kind of lobby for these new positions. So, I expect him to do his due diligence. I think the biggest thing that I'm waiting for is this general manager position that, I think we're all waiting to see if and when do we sign one. The thing that I've been thinking a lot about lately is the draft. It's a process and there's a lot that goes into it. And there's a lot of information that's going to be thrown at him. But at the end of the day, it comes down to, a few people's decisions. I would hate for him to have to go into it by himself, right? It would be nice to have somebody that has been in the NFL for a while, that has a track record of drafting players well, that can help him with that process. So I think everyone's excited about Jerod. I think that there are just some pieces here to this puzzle that need to be filled in. And when they get filled in, I think we have a much clearer look of really the direction of where this team is going to go in the future.
I think it's going to be fascinating to see where they go in the future. But I agree with you, Chris. Who is going to be pulling the trigger when they are on the clock at number 3? And who's going to be making those decisions? Is it going to be Jerod? Is it going to be a GM? Is it going to be the guys who are currently in the building? Is it going to be the owner, Robert Kraft? All of these questions still have to be answered as Jerod Mayo filled in his coaching staff and the front office kind of continues anyway to come into focus. That's all for us right now. Back to you, Courtney.
And that is the big question. Who is going to get that general manager gig? I think it is very smart to make sure that Jerod Mayo has an appropriate titled general manager in that war room with them, drafting players. Next up, we're taking a look at the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers came into the season as a possible playoff contender, obviously because of Justin Herbert, but floundered to a 5-12 record. To wrap up the Chargers season, let's hear from Matt Money Smith and former Charger Lorenzo Neal from the Bleav in Chargers podcast.
All right, thank you, Courtney. Well, everyone is excited. The Chargers got their guy, Jim Harbaugh, got the team he wanted, and everybody is happy. Well, almost everybody. The Chiefs, the Broncos, and the Raiders most definitely are not happy about Jim Harbaugh coming to town.
Absolutely. You better not cry. You better not tout, because I'm telling you why, because Jim Harbaugh is in town. And I'll tell you right now, this guy is going to be a breath of fresh air, and you know what he's going to do. He's going to change the culture and build there. So, yes, I'm with you. The Chargers got their guy.
Yeah, it's toughness, it's winning, and it's someone who has had success with quarterbacks everywhere he's been. Different types of quarterbacks. Alex Smith, who was looked at as a bust as a number 1 overall pick. And then you get Colin Kaepernick. The league had never seen anything like that in quite some time in the dual threat. And, of course, everything he did at Michigan most recently with J.J. McCarthy. So excitement about what he's going to do in a partnership with Justin Herbert as well.
No question. How could you not be happy? We're excited. Let's go Chargers.
No doubt. Jim Harbaugh's in town. They got their general manager in Joe Ortiz, and a lot of people excited about what this 2024 campaign is going to look like, Courtney, and there is great understanding why that is the case. A lot of excitement in town, and we cannot wait to get this thing rolling.
And huge congrats on landing Jim Harbaugh. Listen, he did what he had to do at Michigan, and a lot of people are saying possibly Jim Harbaugh could be a potential Super Bowl champion coach with the Chargers. The Detroit Lions were a quarter away from an unexpected trip to the Super Bowl last Sunday, and the team looks poised to be in the mix again next year. To wrap up the season for the Detroit Lions, let's hear from Jack Kavanaugh and Glover Quinn from the Bleav in Lions podcast. Guys, make me feel better about these Lions. I had them going to the Super Bowl.
Thanks, Courtney. Glover, unfortunately, the Lions season has come to an end, a very disappointing loss in the NFC Championship. But how would you describe the season? Because I would still call this a success.
Same way. I feel like it was a success. I feel like the momentum that they had coming off of last season, they took that same momentum into the offseason, had a phenomenal offseason, and it started out great this year, right? Opening day, you go to Arrowhead, get a win, and you end up in the NFC Championship game. So I think this season was a huge success. Just changed the organization, nationally changed the opinion of the team, had so many people rooting for this organization. So no, they didn't win the Super Bowl, but I definitely feel like this season will be looked at as a success.
This team right now is sowing the seeds. They are setting the standard, and this is what we want the standard to be for the Detroit Lions, right?
Right, and that's what we say, right? The standard is the standard. The expectations are going to be higher. The guys that are coming in, they're going to have to step up. They're going to have to be ready to go. They're going to have to understand that the standard is the standard. We're in the NFC Championship, guys. When you get exposed to that, you want that. And as players, you got to want the same thing.
And I think the Lions absolutely proved that they belong here that first half against the 49ers. They belong in the NFC Championship. They belong at the top of the NFL, and we can't wait to see them back there next season. Back to you, Courtney.
All things aside, this was an amazing season for the Detroit Lions to build on. This is a big win for Dan Campbell and his squad. They're young, they're poised to do it again. Well, it's Pro Bowl week here at the Game Plan. Next week is the official Super Bowl week. So in my key game segment, we're just going to take a quick look at what the Niners and the Chiefs need to do before the big game. First up, let's hear from Anthony Robertson from the 49ers Cutback Podcast. Anthony, what do you got for me on San Fran?
Thanks, Courtney. The San Francisco 49ers were able to erase a 17-point halftime deficit to defeat the Detroit Lions. Now they're headed to the Super Bowl for the first time since 2019. The 49ers know they're going to have to rely on their running game with Christian McCaffrey. When McCaffrey rushes for 75 yards or more, the 49ers are 12-1 on the season. But the big difference in this matchup compared to 2019 is at the quarterback position. Brock Purdy has been making things happen with his legs and with his arm. This is going to be an absolutely fantastic matchup between two teams that are both good on defense and have very good offenses as well. I can't wait for it. Check out 49ers Cutback on Bleav for daily content. Back to you, Courtney.
Okay, a couple of quick notes off the top of my head. Can Brock Purdy, can everyone get off of his back? I mean, he has proven himself, Mr. Irrelevant or not. Is Deebo Samuel going to be healthy? These are just things that I'm thinking about before the Super Bowl. Of course, we'll have a full preview next week on the game plan as well. And finally, let's hear from Jason Dunn and Marcus Dash from the Chief Concerns podcast. Big fans of the game plan. We love you guys down there in Kansas City, Missouri.
Thanks, Courtney. So Mahomes holds a 3-0 record against the 49ers in his career with 1,023 passing yards, 9 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. JD, how do you see this game going?
Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs have been absolutely like a locomotive, just running through defenses, running through teams. And so part of those things, obviously, still throwing the ball to the best tight end in the game, in Travis Kelce. Same thing with the number 1 wide receiver in Rashid Rice, who had 8 catches last week. And then, of course, one of the best running backs in football, Isaiah Pacheco. Plus, with this great defense that a lot of people are just not giving credit to, if you have those guys playing like they played against the Ravens, they will be victorious.
So many storylines behind this Kansas City Chiefs franchise, stepping into a dynasty, their 4th straight Super Bowl appearance. They've got the experience, they've got Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. So many great things going on with the Chiefs, but again, it's the experience that sets them apart. Next up in Pick 6, we will be breaking down the very fun and new events that you will see at the Pro Bowl. Well, it is time to play Pick 6 on the game plan, Pro Bowl edition. This week, our Pick 6 segment is built around the Pro Bowl, just as I said. I am asking Kasey Hudson from the Bleav Me podcast, my girl. She's on the other side of Florida. She's over in Tampa. I'm here in Miami. 6 fun bets to talk about the Pro Bowl. Kasey, are you ready to play Pick 6?
Oh, I'm so excited. Thank you for having me back. We're so close, but so far, so it's always great chatting with you here.
All right, I love it. Let's get to the Pick 6. We're talking everything around the Pro Bowl. Things are a little different this year. I'm super excited by some of these things, but we're just gonna go off and I'm gonna ask you about, for example, my first question, the offensive MVP of the Pro Bowl. Do you have any predictions, any insights? What you got, Kasey?
I'm leaning towards Tua for my offensive MVP. I just love how he came into the season this year, even with his weapons getting hurt. Just look at the numbers that he put up. He was also one of the top quarterbacks in the league. So I love Tua here. I love what he did this season. So let's get Tua some MVP action and love in the Pro Bowl.
Listen, all of those numbers are a great reminder that Miami is just very, very close because he was great this year. Speaking of the defensive side of the ball, who will be the defensive MVP of the Pro Bowl? I'm thinking, and I haven't seen your list yet, but maybe Micah Parsons?
Myles Garrett, right? Talk about a guy who was the single driving force for a team that just kind of couldn't really put all units of football together, right? But he was a force to be reckoned with for this team. Myles Garrett is a monster. He is huge, but he's also very athletic, very explosive for his size. To bring some honor back to the Browns, maybe let's hand him or see if he earns defensive MVP.
He did have a breakout season. Remember, the Browns finished the regular season as the #1 overall defense for all the things that they did. Who wins the Gridiron Gauntlet competition, the AFC or the NFC? Now, let me allow the audience, I'm going to explain what these 3 new competitions are. The Gridiron Gauntlet is a full field relay race between 6 AFC players and 6 NFC players. Who wins the Legends of the Hidden Temple Award?
I love that reference. I love that. You got to think elusive players when it comes to this. So AFC have a lot of dynamic defensive players in that defensive end, linebacker, and cornerback groups. Like a notch more speed, a notch more dynamic, a notch more elusiveness. So I got to go with the AFC on this one.
The next competition, the tug of war competition. I mean, it's color war. Demonstration of teamwork. Okay, there's just a pit of balls and they're just doing the tug of war and then they drag them all in there. Who wins the tug of war? Who's stronger, the AFC or the NFC?
Oh, see, AFC's got some strong guys. When it comes to stronger, I'm kind of leaning NFC, but then you just need maniacs. You need the crazy guys. Max Crosby, Garrett, Smith, Queen. So I'm going to lean AFC one more time here.
Yep. Moving the chains is the next competition. The offensive and defensive lineman strength and speed competition takes strategy and teamwork. each team of 5 players must work together to move 3,000 pounds of a massive wall. So who wins this moving the chains competition, AFC or NFC?
I've got to lean NFC here. They had the most consistent O-line performers throughout the year for me. You're talking about Kelsey, another maniac too that just helps with stuff like this. Lane Johnson's who I've loved for years. Hutchinson was an animal this season, and Montez Sweat. So I think the NFC was just stronger and very consistent throughout the season when it came to this category.
And my last question is kind of a trick question. Who wins the Pro Bowl? Because listen, we all win when we have the Manning brothers on the field. Whichever conference he's coaching, Eli's going to be my pick for winning the Pro Bowl.
It's so hard for me to choose a brother because they both encompass things that I love. But I'm going to go with the NFC here. They bounced back from a deficiency last year in the Pro Bowl, and you've got players from teams that just really put this to take that next step. So I kind of got to go with the NFC here.
I love it. Thank you so much for being on the show, Kasey. It is a pleasure to have you as always.
Thank you so much, Courtney. Can't wait to chat with you again.
Well, that's all the time we have on the game plan today. Go check out the Bleav Podcast Network for more in-depth analysis on every team in the league. And also, don't forget, you can catch every game live on Reach TV all season long. We'll see you next week, Super Bowl week.